welcome to 2020 Design Trends by UXPin. Today, on our short interview, I'm joined by Chhavi, all the way from Barcelona. Chhavi, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, hello everyone. Even though when she said Barcelona, I'm pretty sure you were imagining the sun. It's not, it's cloudy and rainy and everything, but we don't get to complain. It's only a 1 week in a year. But hey, hello everyone. I'm Chhavi. I'm currently working as a product designer at N26. I come from India, like all the way from India, and I just moved here like 2 months back. So yeah, I consider myself pretty new to this city and to this company as well. Back in India, I was working as a UX designer with Nutanix. And before that, I was studying design. Like I was completing my bachelor's of design at IIT Guwahati. So yeah, here I am.
So I imagine that you bring all this new, fresh energy to N26, right? Like being not only a really young designer, but also new to the city and like with whole new approach. Good for them to have you.
Yeah, it's actually like I came with very low expectations because it was a completely different culture. The design community in India is like very mature, very closely knit. We know all of us know each other through somebody. So coming here, I wasn't like expecting too much, to be honest. But I should say I'm like genuinely surprised. One, by the crowd in N26 itself. We are, I think, presently 86 nationalities working together. Even in our design team, we have somebody from Iran, Switzerland, US. So it's like quite a different mix. So I would say I do not like feel like an alien coming from the other side of the world. That's one thing. So everybody brings in their own fresh perspectives, which is very helpful for the field that we are in, which is like dealing with banks and money. Everybody comes with their own perspective on how to deal with money and banks. Simple things which somebody might take as granted is questioned by some another person from a completely different background, which I find like really cool. So that's one thing, and the other thing is like all the teams here work quite closely with each other. We have to. It's like a very, if we are just dealing with money and banks. There's not like 100 things to do, but 10 things to do really nicely. Uh, the team structure is very small, so like I work in a team which handles localization for European markets. So like N26 is a global product, but how can we make it more localized for different markets? So my team, I'm the designer. We have some developers, like back-end developers, front-end developers, and a product manager. And we work very closely with other teams who are like in the markets domain, I would say, and we all work towards a common goal. So there's a lot of collaboration going on and a lot of in-depth knowledge that you gain over the time. So it's fun. It's a fun place to be as a designer, I would say, because uh, it's not just about creating mock-ups. It's also about a lot more about the product itself, the business, the market, the development constraints, all those things, which is fun.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, I'm really impressed by N26 myself. So I find your design very, very neat and modern. So that's I figured that you would have to say a lot about like fresh stuff, like really cool trends in for 2020. But like I would like to ask you because you are, as you said, you're like a young designer yourself. How would you because I figure that you have to like build your career still. You're like in this like building mode still, right? So what do you expect from the market, like design market in 2020 when it comes to like designers' personal brand?
That's actually a really good question. Like, thank you for mentioning. Like, I consider myself a junior designer. Like, I have a lot to learn, and that is why, honestly, I was really surprised when you approached me for this. I was like, really, but yeah. So, like coming from India, I've seen the market there. There are a lot more design schools in India now, like as they were 5 years ago. So definitely the field is opening up as UX designers, product designers, UI designers. The market is also opening for like UX writers and researchers. Like all this is, I think, past news. Like I would be like uh, saying this was like 2 years back. So I would say the market has matured quite a lot in terms of roles and the value of design. Uh, what I feel like as a very I don't know, might be naive perspective from a junior designer, but what I feel is it's no longer about the coolest design or like the most in trend design. Here at N26 also, what we are working with is, you know, practical design, the one that can be shipped out to our customers in the shortest period of time at the right time. You know, we can't lose out on not shipping a feature just because we wanted to build something fancy. It should be practical. It should be a right market fit. And when I say market fit, that's when, as a designer, you also have to sit with your product managers and business people to understand that, oh, where it's coming from. For example, the current project that I'm working on, when I put it in my portfolio, a lot of people will look at it and say, hey, that's nothing groundbreaking. You know, I could have done it in a week. It's not that like it's not something that changes the world that big, you know. But the journey of like, you know, taking all these different factors and making sure that you're in the, you know, at the right tables, understanding perspectives of different people, be it the developers or the market people or the business people, and making sure that your designs are delivered in time. uh, I think that's something that a role of designer will converge more and more towards. You just cannot afford to work in silos anymore as designers. Like I think in the coming year or the next year, the role, like right now, it's taken like as a privilege, or I would say like a standalone case where you're working with developers and product managers closely. I would say in future that would become a given. You know, you can't just work in silos.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. Not prediction, but I think read of the market. And
Yeah,
that's it.
well, let's hope so, because when you talk about it, I like envision all these like maybe, well, I don't want to say old, but experienced designers, and they are like all very I think structured in the way of thinking, and like having the design be all about the design and just nothing with the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think that's the old school way of thinking, that design is just supposed to be pretty and, well, maybe usable, right? But
Mm-hmm.
how it affects the product and the business, people didn't care before. So I think that's a very mature thing from you, and it's a very like product designer thing to say, right? uh,
Uh, Yeah, I could say that. And what I would like, now that you bring the experienced designers in perspective, what I would also be curious to see is how my career progresses as I go forward. Like, will I still have the freedom to be like a individual contributor, like they call it, like, you know, like a senior designer, or will moving on to like a leadership position be my only way to like grow in the ladder of design? You know, do you understand what I'm trying to like point out? One is like solely from the, like, will I be able to like do 100% creative work as a senior designer and still progress in the career ladder? I think this is one thing that the industry is currently figuring out, that is, you know, is moving into a people role the only way for a designer to get there. And I think it's like a really tricky gray area, because as a designer you want to have a seat at the table, but you don't really want to attend all the meetings and stuff, because then it takes away your creative
yeah,
soul.
yeah,
But you want a voice, so you can't have a voice without being at the table. And you know, you can't be at the table and I won't say not be creative, but like, you know, be like 100% creative. So that's like a sweet spot that mature designers are trying to figure out right now, like experienced designers. And I would be really curious to see in future what path will I have to take, or will I get to choose, you know. That'd be interesting.
yeah. Well, I get you, because right now it's like either you like develop to manage people and just
Mm-hmm.
imagine your creative work, or
Mm-hmm.
be like more and more experienced in your specific field of creative work, and
Yeah.
like either this or that, right? And
Yeah.
I would love to see that like somehow intertwined. That would be very cool.
Yeah, like here we have my manager and the person who's leading the team here. He's doing somewhat the thing that we are talking about, like a merge. He does have ownership of few products, features, and he's helping manage other teams as well. But yeah, it will be interesting, like how the industry matures to accommodate more and more senior designers, and how much level of freedom do we get in choosing and carving our own roles.
Yeah, that's so cool. And really, really interesting to watch. Like from my perspective, from the backseat of a car, and a designer.
Yeah, no, even I'm relieved as a junior designer. I'm like, okay, I've got a few years. Let the adults figure it out. So yeah, I'm okay too.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I talk with different designers from like different industries and different
Mhm.
skill sets, and they all say that the landscape of design work, like jobs right now, is so changing so much because, well, like a couple of years ago, you would say, okay, so I'm a designer or a graphic designer, or maybe like few years after that, UX designer or UI designer, and now we have like, oh my god, so many roles, right? And this is really, really, really interesting thing to see, and I'm really impressed how you have this, like openness and this open approach to that, and you're like ready to embrace whatever comes.
That's right. Like as much as I'm open to the idea of a generalist designer. I also truly appreciate the specialist, like people who truly have mastered one field of design. For example, I think we were talking before brand designers. This is one set of designers that I've recently worked with at N26. Like we didn't have it on our previous company. It was part of marketing, but here at N26, they're closely linked with our product design team. Uh, we don't call it product design team, we call it design team, which is like product, brand, and research. So what it gives us the ability as product designers is whatever we are designing, we also get a certain amount of influence on how it's being communicated to our users at the end. It also makes sure of things like, the product looks all fancy, but then you see a banner out on the road which is like completely out of sync of the product, doesn't feel like the product at all. So these are all tiny tiny things which the brand design, as a brand designer, I feel they are like super value, and they have the skill set which is completely unique to what they are doing. Like it's a mix of marketing and like advanced design skills like after effects or illustrations. So and also like certain amount of voice and tone. So this is like a really unique blend of skills that they possess, and something that they're really really good at. Like if even like if I try, I would have to try really really hard to match up to that, but I'm really happy that they're doing their jobs separately so that I can do mine. So yeah, I think as even though we're talking about a designer who will be like a hybrid of a lot of things, specialized designers won't, I don't think it'll ever go out of market. I think they're like really really skilled and really appreciated part of the community.
Yeah, sure, sure. We all like appreciate a good skill, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like brand designers are appreciated as well because, well, it's good to have someone to like watch over the whole like vision, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really
So,
nice.
Chavi, please tell me, what are your professional goals for 2020? Like, do you have a list of things that you want to accomplish?
To be honest, like last year was really heavy on the professional goals because like I was thinking about what next, and I did move here, like did the job hunt and move here. So this year I was more on like now that I'm here, how can I add value to where I am, like add more skill sets. So I would say they are not like purely professional, like update my website or create a new resume or things like that. I think I've decided to like give it a pause this year and focus more on myself. I was reading a tweet the other day, and it said that like if all the designers are going to Tokyo, following the same leaders on Twitter, and reading the same books, where will all the new ideas come from? As a design community, we are becoming more and more linked, but we also need to like retain our individualities even more now. And I was thinking that okay, that sounds interesting. What do I have as a standout, say, hobby or skill that I really like, which if I go out in the market, no other designer will have. What I'm trying to say. It seems like a lot of us are having common interest, which is good, but it's also something which scares me that hey, everybody is like writing on Twitter, reading the books I read, writing on Medium, and stuff like that. So this year I've decided that I will go out of my comfort zone and try out things which are completely unrelated to my work. It cannot include writing or reading or the safe options which I consider. Started with something really tiny. Like in January, I got like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and I'm trying to build it. It's really impossible so far, but that's what my goal is. Like slowly and slowly find different things. I don't know. Maybe it will be crochet or maybe it will be gardening, but I'm gonna try different things which are not related to my work, and maybe at the end of the year, I can look back and say that hey, I tried out 5 or 6 things. I absolutely hated all those things, but it was really nice to like get out of my zone.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's
what I'm looking
where
forward.
creativity lives, right? Out of the comfort zone.
I hope. I hope.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Chhavi, I wish you all the best in 2020. I wish I'm like keeping my fingers crossed for all your goals to come reality, and I wish you all the creativity in the world. And
Thank you.
thank you very much for joining us and for creating this amazing interview with me and showing us the like totally fresh new way of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for talking to me. Like I feel truly honored. Like thank you. Thank you so
The
much.
honor is mine. The honor is mine. Let's keep in touch.
Yes, sure. Thank you.